what they call the notch, the Grinnell notch, they call it. It's back in October of 1896, somewhere around the 8th or 10th of 1896 is when the government had the tribe cede back the lands because they were gold miners that were illegally mining for gold on Fort Belknap. And so they went to Congress and got the land taken back from the tribe. And it was, they were, with the Grinnell agreement was that if the tribes, the Assiniboine and Gros tribes did not sign, then our people would starve, especially they would cut us off on our rations. So back then the tribes didn't know English, and so interpreters interpreted that, and so a lot of the starvation tactics were used, so the tribes were coerced into signing the land back. And I believe in the history of there was like billions of dollars that were taken from that mine. So then back in April of 1994, I was the vice president of the tribe, and we were working with some like Island Mountain protectors, as well as Red Thunder, who were organizations from home here that were fighting to stop the mining back in 1979 or even earlier. So they went with the tribe, and that's when the tribe was concerned about pollution. And so the pollution part of it was they were concerned about that coming north onto the reservation. And so the tribe then filed, but I believe there was a consent decree that spelled out some of the cleanup, and then there was Pegasus filed for bankruptcy back in 1997, somewhere around there. So that made the state of Montana, which there was a $35 million bond at the time. So I think at the time the bond wasn't enough to clean up the pollution. And the big concern is the pollution coming north, not only on surface, but as well as the aquifers that are in there. So there's a lot of cancer out south, and a lot of cancer that just about every day of the week, there's like 3 to 5 people going to Havre for chemotherapy and radiation. And so in 2004, the tribe wanted to sue, and they went to Missoula, but then it was declared CERCLA. And my understanding of CERCLA is that it stops, it's a super fund, so then it stops all lawsuits and whatnot that's around there. But yet at the same time, there's still people that are still getting the signs of heap leach pad mining, and I believe this is the second largest in the world, heap leach pad mining. And the floods this spring made us very concerned about the breach of holding ponds and the settling ponds, or I call them mini leach pads. And so the pollution during the floods around May 20th, somewhere around there, the pollution moved into north, probably a mile and a half into the reservation, and that's what we're concerned about. On the Landusky side, we were able to look at what they call aluminum and flowing in one of the creeks there. I think it's Montana Gulch Creek that comes through Zortman there, and some of the experts that we were there were very concerned about that. It's a concern on every direction of the mining, what impacts there is. And when we were up there, there's like the town of Landusky and the town of Zortman have these huge water storage that they clean the water, take all the contaminants out of settling ponds, and so they're computerized, and that was the concern. Is I think every tributary is pumped into different ponds. You're talking acres of settling ponds, and lined very well, and they're pumped up closer to the water treatment plants, and then they turn around and clean the water before it goes back into the tributaries. And Landusky as well as Zortman have that luxury. But if you go on the north side, what I call is like maybe a 1,500 gallon tank that is run by a generator, and it supposedly they have holding ponds, which are, you're talking square feet, I don't know, maybe 200-300 square feet, and it's not lined that very well, and so the rusty water gets down the tank. But it's something that a person really doesn't know what's coming on the reservation, or where the contaminants are going, mine contaminants, and that's what the big concern is I always felt that nothing really is being done to the waters coming onto the Fort Belknap Reservation. You're talking maybe community 3,000 people, and then they don't. We have this system that's not, in our eyes, not very great, but you see these 1,000,000-gallon water tanks on top of the mountain that serve Zortman and Landusky, which is, I don't know, 30 to 50 people in the community. And so does the government or the DEQ, Montana DEQ or BLM really care? And I've always felt that maybe they don't, because nobody's ever done a study or have driven any data to see what the cancer is linked to. So that's a big concern. I mean, there's people that come through our office asking for help so they can get to their appointments or take their significant other or their son or daughter or somebody. So those are the things a person is really concerned about. In Lincoln or Missoula or someplace else, they have a big lot of articles in the paper regarding when there's somebody sick or something, or there's pollution. They advertise it, but don't see anything in the mines here in the Little Rockies. I think Spirit Mountain is one of the mountains it was a cultural site for our tribes to go fast and do their spiritual gatherings. So, but like I said, if I went down to a church and destroyed it, I'd be in jail. And that's the difference, is that they took a picture of me like I was crazy. Probably ruined me, But that's the difference, is where is what is fair and what isn't, I think it's something that someone really needs to look into, Because our pictures that we have of our PowerPoints, we see the ugly, mucky water coming, and then BLM they've had their PowerPoints as well as DEQ, and it's kind of like trying to sell me a real nice ranch, nice clean water. Those are the things that really bother me and I have concerns with. Is be fair about it, and if there's something wrong, let's clean it up.
So they stopped the heap leach mining in '97 when they went bankrupt, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you know when they started actually using the collection pits full of, was it cyanide they used to leach the?
Yeah, cyanide, and the mining started in 1979. Started then? Yeah. Okay. And that's when the BLM and DEQ, my understanding is signed the papers that gave them the okay. And the crazy thing about it is when that land was ceded back to the federal government back in 1896. And throughout the years, there has been private land that people have gotten as of today. And it's kind of strange that the government takes the land, but then they get the private or citizens own the land, not non-Indians. And that's kind of puts a question in my mind now. They cede it back to the government, but yet on the other hand, there's private owners that own the land. That's kind of like checkerboard within the BLM, and so the right-of-ways and whatnot. There used to be no right-of-way. We used to go as when we were kids to go from Hayes area over the mountains into Zortman to go to where my dad lived east of Zortman on a reservation. And so those are kind of things you wonder, how did that become fee land throughout the years?
Could you elaborate a little bit more about some of the effects you've seen? I know you said that there's not been, it's not been officially connected, but you sound like you have seen some effects on the reservation of what looks to be the contamination and pollution coming off the mountain.
Yeah, there's the if you go up on the BLM side next to the mining, where what they call I thought it was Queen Rose leach pad, and what you see coming down what they call Swift Gulch is this ugly rust-colored water that comes down, and it looks like someone stepped in some of the streams where the it looks like coffee grounds, and it stepped in there. Their shoe was plumb rusty colored orange, And I remember the being up there as a young person, teenager, whatnot, riding horseback through there. We used to catch fish, and we would camp and eat fish there, drink the water. But there's the moss don't even look healthy, and it's like there's something wrong with it. I mean, just a gut feeling tells you there's something wrong, and so that's always been a big concern. Was there's something wrong, and some of our families, like my family, always used medicinal plants traditionally, and so aunt and uncle used to camp up there all summer, and they both died of cancer. So it's kind of like, what's happening if they're up there living just north of on the campgrounds there, north of the pollution, then there's got to be some on Swift Gulch. Then on King Creek, there's a lot of, which is west of there, the original, there's a lot of mine tailings that come down. And that's always a big concern is, what's in the tailings, And so that's one of the things that I've always wanted to find out is how is it impacting our people physically, and what's it doing? That's where you'd have experts or scientists, whoever would come in and look at that data and say, is there something wrong? And that's all I'm asking, and there's people on the reservation are concerned. So I have to, as the president of the tribes, I have to find out what they're asking me. And so I've been pushing for a long time for some answers from BLM and the DEQ, and that's all I want is answers. There shouldn't be anything to hide. I mean, every time you go up there, they say, I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide. I mean, why tell me that? I mean, if every time somebody came to my office and I said, I have nothing to hide, then they're going to start thinking, what does he have to hide? I mean, that's kind of the way I see it. Let's get something going to see what's happening with the high amount of cancer, especially out south. Thyroidism, lead, all that. We have to find out. It's just plain and simple. They should be able to just say, okay, let's do it. Rather than be defenses for me and with me, they should just be up front with me. They kicked me off the mountain there when I was concerned about the Swift Gulch. Had to go through Zortman, and they kicked me off of there. And I told them I was with the BIA. I don't know, maybe I'm a threat or something, but I just I wasn't disrespectful. I just was following the BIA. They seen me and thought I was just trespassing. But at the same time, is there a right-of-way? That original road that used to go over the mountains from Hayes to Landusky and Zortman, someone had to have a right-of-way, for the private land as well as the BLM land to make that road. And then all of a sudden it's locked, the gates are even moved closer to the reservation where they used to be further. And so that sets another question in my mind is how come the gates are being moved closer to the reservation? Is there something to hide? That's kind of what I'd like to find out.
You've mentioned a couple government agencies being up here. Who have you worked with and who is attempting to do something? Because I feel like BLM and DEQ are at least looking into it. Is that accurate? Or what's going on there with the government?
Well, back in July of 2010, the Center for Disease Control, I used to sit on their national advisory committee, and so I've always questioned that, why is there such a high rate of cancer and so in 2009 out in Anchorage, Alaska, I was concerned about it. So then they asked me if we would help sponsor the next Center for Disease Control meeting. And so some of the officials in Atlanta, Georgia came and they'd done a site visit. But then and they were concerned about it. And so, and then I brought the Department of Justice up there, and I think next week we're supposed to go up there again. But one of the things on the, I call it the Indian side or the north side, is the BLM and DEQ have gotten ARA funds, and then they built a shed over the porta potty, I call it. I mean, they kind of cleaned it up, but it's like putting a nice building over my slop pail. You know, the old timers used to have the slop pail. You know, so it's just like, I mean, or if I just didn't want to have somebody see something, I'd just cover it with a nice fancy building. So it looks good, but there's still pollution that comes through. But you don't see the same pollution on the south side, you know, Landusky, until I think, if I remember correctly, some of them holding ponds breached, and so they washed underneath. And you know, either side, I don't really care what side, but I'm concerned about the water for everybody, you know, and that's it's the safety of the drinking water or the streams, you know, that there's water quality concerns, you know, and in the law, you know, the laws are trying to take them away so they could have dirtier water, which is not right.
Which is another thing I wanted to tell you or ask you about is during this last legislative session, there was at least one bill about heap leach mining that was sort of trying to, I think, loosen the regulations in a way on doing that sort of mining that was supported by representatives from Havre. I don't know about around here, but I was just wondering what you thought about the state legislature looking at possibly expanding the kind of practices that you were seeing causing trouble down here on your reservation.
Well, I had a container, but it's probably like a quart that we got the former president, Julia Doney, got a sample of Swift Gulch. And so you let it set. I used to have it in my office. I got it down to Chambers, but you shook that, and it's just rusty. And that's what I used in the testimony when we were opposing the, loosening up EPA regulation as far as water quality. And, people were saying it's the economy. But if you look at of all the pollution, taxpayers had to pay, I think it's somewhere around 80 or 90 million dollars. I mean, if you look at the mines itself, it's perpetuity. It's like once it's exposed, you're always going to have to clean it. I mean, forever. And so that 80 million is going to double, triple one of these days, and the taxpayers of Montana are going to have to fit the bill for that pollution, which are there. I mean, it's like a $2 million R funds and other grants that went up there to clean it. So it's not cheap. I mean, the pollution costs more than what the price of gold is. It could be $3,000 an ounce, and you're still going to have pollution. Or it has nothing to do with the value of gold at any minute, but it's going to have to be the taxpayers is going to have to pay for that gold. The mines they file bankruptcy, and we're stuck with the pollution and the sicknesses that come with it. They don't see the bigger picture.